The first tremor wasn't felt by the people of Earth, but by the machines orbiting it, silent satellites that suddenly went dark, flickering like candles caught in a storm. Their blackout marked the arrival of something vast, something deliberate, something that watched Earth the way a predator measures its prey. In the span of minutes, a shadow eclipsed the sun above the Pacific, stretching across the water like an omen. The vessel responsible was enormous, a battle fortress forged in the vacuum of distant stars, its hull etched with glowing, alien sigils and its silhouette, sharp enough to scar the sky itself. Inside that fortress, the Valorian warriors assembled in a towering chamber, their figures rigid and confident, beneath armor plates that shimmered. Like polished obsidian, they moved with perfect synchronicity, their discipline born from a culture that glorified conquest and regarded emotions as weaknesses. The commander stood at the center, a massive being with plated skin and eyes like molten silver. His voice carried the weight of centuries of victories as he reviewed holographic projections of Earth's defenses. He observed human soldiers maneuvering in training exercises, their faces determined but mortal. The commander released a low, rippling laugh, a sound that echoed through the chamber like rolling thunder. To him, humanity was quaint, fierce, perhaps, but fragile. The Valorians had defeated empires far greater. On the surface below, however, one man refused to be categorized so easily. In a fortified naval base concealed beneath the ocean, Lieutenant Marcus Hale prepared for what had initially been a routine operation. Hale was a Navy SEAL trained for missions, buried beneath secrecy and pressure. His presence alone commanded confidence, though he rarely raised his voice. He was the kind of soldier shaped not by brute strength, but by resilience. His calmness under strain, his ability to adapt, and the quiet fire in his eyes distinguished him among the elite. As Hale tightened the straps on his gear, an alarm blared through the base, one that no training drill had ever produced. A synthetic voice crackled through speakers, announcing an extraterrestrial intrusion. Hale paused, absorbing the gravity of what that meant. He'd faced insurgents, warlords and mercenaries, but never a threat that descended from the heavens. He felt a chill travel up his spine, yet not a single muscle trembled. Instead, his heartbeat steadied. He moved toward the command room with purposeful strides, knowing that the world had just changed. The atmosphere inside the briefing chamber was electric, charged with fear and urgency. High-ranking officers stood hunched over screens, displaying chaotic scenes from across Earth, aircraft spiraling, energy beams tearing through the sky, and entire cities plunged into darkness. Hale joined his team near the center, quietly observing, absorbing details with the focus of a man who understood that survival depended on clarity of mind. The Admiral addressed them with a steady, resolute tone, but Hale recognized the tension beneath it. The Admiral explained that an alien force had breached Earth's outer defenses and appeared to be scanning military structures. Their intentions were unknown, but the speed and precision of their movements revealed a terrifying truth. This was not diplomacy, it was domination. The Admiral gestured toward a holographic image of the Valorian fortress, the same vessel eclipsing the sun above the Pacific. The soldiers murmured in disbelief at the ship's sheer scale. Hale said nothing, though his mind raced. He knew that a threat this advanced would not approach Earth unless it intended to test or destroy the species. A transmission suddenly filled the room. Broadcasting audio captured moments before a frontline unit vanished from radar. Chilling alien laughter reverberated through the speakers. It was mockery, cold, amused, dismissive. That sound cut deeper than any ideological threat. Humanity's strongest warriors had been reduced to a joke in the eyes of their invaders. Hale felt something inside him harden, a flame sparking to life. The Valorians weren't simply attacking Earth. They were humiliating it, and that was something he refused to accept. The Admiral turned toward Hale specifically, his gaze sharp. He explained that intelligence hinted the Valorians were searching for humanity's strongest individuals, perhaps evaluating Earth's capacity for resistance. A countermeasure was needed, something bold enough to disrupt their confidence, something personal enough to remind them that Earth's spirit was not a trivial thing to be laughed at. Hale understood before the Admiral spoke the words. He was being chosen to infiltrate the alien ship, assess their threat, and deliver a message that humanity would not bow. Hale nodded once, accepting the mission with quiet certainty. Fear existed, but it lived behind the determination. He had long accepted that courage was not the absence of fear, but the act of walking through it. As he moved with his team toward the aircraft that would carry them into the storm forming above the ocean, the base trembled violently. The Valorian ship had shifted position, generating a vortex that distorted both air and sea. The world outside grew dark, as though swallowed by an eclipse. Yet amid the chaos, Hale stood anchored, his expression unwavering. The aircraft doors opened to a sky spiraling with violet energy. Wind howled through the cabin. Hale stepped forward, gripping the side rail for balance. His team looked to him, not for instruction, but for reassurance. He gave them a simple nod. It was enough. With one deep breath, Hale leapt into the churning storm, ascending toward the alien fortress that believed humanity was nothing more than an amusing obstacle. He would prove them wrong, and the universe would remember the moment they realized their mistake. Marcus Hale's descent onto the Valorian flagship felt like plunging into another reality altogether. The air itself seemed alive, vibrating with currents of unfamiliar energy that scratched against his armor like static. When his boots hit the metallic surface, he stabilized himself with practiced efficiency, letting his eyes adjust to the luminous glow that pulsed beneath the floor. Every inch of the alien vessel radiated menace, its architecture sharp and organic, as though the ship grew rather than was built. Hale inhaled slowly, committing to memory the scent of ozone and metal, grounding himself amid the uncanny silence. This mission was no longer reconnaissance. It was survival, and possibly, if he succeeded, a turning point in a war humans had not chosen. The first echoing sound he heard was laughter, deep and resonant, rolling down the corridor ahead. It wasn't cheerful. It was taunting, reveling in confidence born from centuries of domination. Hale raised his weapon and moved toward it, each step measured and quiet. The source of the laughter revealed itself in the form of 3 Valorian soldiers stepping into view. They stood nearly twice his height, armored in plates that shimmered with a violet sheen. Their posture carried an effortless arrogance as they observed him, amused by his size and apparent fragility. One of them tilted his head, voice rumbling like shifting mountains. "A single human infiltrator. Is this Earth's challenge?" Another leaned forward, inspecting Hale with a sneer. "They send a small warrior to face giants." A bold gesture, but meaningless. Hale didn't respond immediately. He took in their armor, the way their joints moved, the rhythm of their breathing, details that might become weaknesses. His calm expression only irritated them further. Their amusement tinged with disappointment, as though they expected him to tremble. Finally, Hale spoke, his tone steady. "You laugh too easily." The brief silence that followed carried weight. Valorians valued dominance above all else, and his refusal to cower unsettled them. Before they could close in, Hale fired 3 EMP rounds. The projectiles crackled against their armor without penetrating, but Hale had never expected them to. The shots destabilized the magnetic field beneath their feet, causing the deck plates to shift violently. The aliens staggered as the gravity momentarily warped, their balance compromised. Hale seized the opening. In a fluid motion, he dove forward, sliding between the legs of the nearest alien before driving a shock dagger into the exposed joint behind its knee. A roar shook the corridor as the giant collapsed. Hale rolled to his feet and pivoted, just in time to dodge a sweeping strike from the second alien. He countered with explosive charges that clung to the creature's armor, detonating in a controlled burst that shattered its neck plating and sent the beast crashing to the ground. The remaining soldier watched with a mix of rage and disbelief. Hale could sense the shift. This one was not like the others. Its armor hummed with energy, brighter and more intricate, marking it as an elite. Before he could reposition, the elite lunged with blinding speed. A massive clawed hand clamped around Hale's torso and hurled him against the wall. Pain exploded through his ribs, and his breath escaped in a sharp gasp. He forced himself upright, wiping blood from his mouth. The elite approached slowly, savoring the moment. "You have spirit," it growled. "But spirit does not win wars." Hale steadied his breathing, blocking out the throbbing pain. He glanced down at the gravity knife clipped to his belt, a prototype considered too unstable for most missions. He had hoped to save it as a last resort, but now, with the elite towering before him, there was no alternative. The creature lunged again. Hale sidestepped and jammed the gravity knife against its chest. For an instant, the alien froze, confused. Hale clicked the activator. A silent distortion rippled outward as the device generated a micro-implosion. The elite let out a distorted howl as its armor twisted inward, collapsing with sickening force. The creature fell, its body folding unnaturally before the energy field dissipated. Hale dropped to one knee, clutching his ribs. Sweat mixed with blood on his forehead, and his breaths came shallow. He'd survived the encounter, but the cost was mounting. He forced himself to stand, unwilling to show weakness even in solitude. The ship's lights suddenly pulsed red, an alarm blaring throughout the corridor. His presence had been detected. More Valorians were converging. A holographic projection flickered to life above the central walkway. The Valorian commander appeared, his eyes blazing with fury. "Human," he thundered, "your defiance is admirable but futile. You are alone within the heart of our dominion." Hale met the projection's gaze, his pulse steadying. "If I'm in your heart," he said, "you should worry about what happens next." With the alarm continuing to wail, Hale moved deeper into the ship. The corridor ahead dimmed, revealing intricate conduits humming with power. He knew the central reactor had to be near. If he could sabotage it even partially, he could cripple the ship and give Earth a fighting chance. His vision blurred momentarily from the exertion, but he pressed on, driven by a stubborn resolve that pain could not extinguish. Behind him, the rhythmic thunder of approaching footsteps echoed. The Valorians were reorganizing, hunting him with renewed aggression. Hale tightened his grip on his weapon and pushed through the final archway, stepping into a massive chamber filled with reactors pulsing like mechanical hearts. He had reached the core, but he wasn't alone anymore. The real battle was about to begin. The chamber's vastness swallowed Marcus Hale as he stepped inside. Its architecture unlike anything created by human hands. Towering pylons spiraled upward in twisting arcs, each humming with a rhythm that resembled a heartbeat. Pulses of violet energy coursed through translucent conduits, feeding the colossal reactor suspended in the center like an artificial sun. The air vibrated with raw power, pressing against his skin as though the room itself recognized the presence of an intruder. Hale steadied his breath, determined to keep his mind sharp despite the pain gnawing at his ribs. He knew he had reached the heart of the Valorian war machine, and whatever happened next would decide more than survival. It would determine whether humanity had any chance at all. A faint distortion rippled across the chamber floor, and Hale instinctively raised his weapon. From the shadows emerged the one figure he hoped he wouldn't have to face so soon, the Valorian commander himself. Unlike the soldiers Hale had defeated, this being radiated an aura of authority that seemed woven into the air around him. Plates of dark armor clung to his towering frame, each etched with symbols marking victories across galaxies. His molten silver eyes studied Hale with an unreadable intensity, no longer amused like the warriors who laughed before. There was curiosity now, but also irritation. Hale had disrupted more than their security. He had pierced their pride. "So," the commander said, his deep voice resonating through the chamber, "Earth's small warrior reaches the core of our vessel. Boldness is an admirable trait, though often suicidal." Hale kept his stance firm. refusing to let the commander's presence intimidate him. "You underestimate us," he replied, every syllable steady. "That's why I'm standing here and your soldiers aren't." Commander tilted his head slightly, considering the comment. "You misunderstand. Their defeat proves your strength, not humanity's. You are an anomaly, an outlier, and one soldier does not change the fate of a species." Hale knew arguing with him was pointless. Words wouldn't shift the balance, only action could. He scanned the room, noticing exposed conduits feeding directly into the reactor's stabilizer rings. If he could sever even two of them, the energy flow would destabilize long enough to trigger a cascade failure. He readied himself for the confrontation, muscles tightening despite the aching protest of his body. The commander moved closer, steps echoing like distant thunder. "Before you act, human, consider that your destruction here would be swift. Surrender your weapon. Your death need not be meaningless." Hale didn't hesitate. "My life gets meaning from what I choose to fight for." With that, he fired. The first shot ricocheted off the commander's armor, sparking but not penetrating. The creature advanced without flinching, and Hale rolled aside just as a massive fist slammed into the floor, sending fragments of alien alloy flying. Hale used the momentum to slide behind a pylon, firing at a conduit to draw the commander's attention. The energy core flickered, its glow shifting in agitation. Enraged, the commander charged again. Hale narrowly avoided the strike, but the shockwave sent him sprawling. His vision blurred, and the ringing in his ears intensified, but he forced himself upright. The commander approached with predatory precision, confident that the battle had already tilted in his favor. Hale clutched the remaining detonator, realizing he had only one chance left. He had to place it at the stabilizer ring while keeping the commander occupied. A task that bordered on impossible. Summoning everything within him, Hale sprinted toward the reactor platform. The commander roared and pursued, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Hale jumped onto a narrow walkway, landing with a grunt as pain lanced through his side. He slapped the detonator onto the stabilizer ring and armed it, hearing the device's faint whine as it primed itself. The commander leapt onto the platform a moment later, the impact shaking the structure violently. "You sacrifice yourself for a world that will fall regardless," the commander growled. Hale stared at him, refusing to yield. "If we fall fighting." With a burst of effort, Hale launched himself toward the opposite end of the platform, firing repeatedly to slow the commander. The detonator beeped faster. The reactor lights flickered. The commander lunged, seizing Hale by the armor and lifting him effortlessly off the ground. Pain exploded across Hale's chest as the grip tightened. "Your resistance ends here," the commander declared. Hale's hand found the gravity knife at his belt, a final desperate measure. With a sharp movement, he activated it and drove it beneath the commander's arm plates. The distortion field erupted, shredding circuitry and armor in a violent implosion. The commander staggered, losing his grip. Hale fell, hitting the platform hard. As the alien collapsed, sparks cascading from his armor, he looked at Hale with something like respect. "Human, perhaps your species is not so small after all." Those were his final words, before the reactor began to scream with catastrophic instability. Hale forced himself to stand, lungs burning. He dashed toward the exit as the chamber convulsed. Fire and light spiraled behind him, conduits bursting one after another. The detonator's explosion triggered the chain reaction he'd hoped for. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring in every direction. Hale reached the corridor and leapt as the shockwave tore through the chamber, a blinding eruption of energy, swallowing everything in its path. He hit the ground hard but kept moving, driven by nothing but grit. The ship was dying around him, but he was still alive, and Earth still had a chance.